Hello, my fellow fractals of God's divine white light. Good to see you again. Hi. It is I, Matt Owens. Welcome back to A Cult of Misfits, guys. I'm really enjoying this little club. Community is overused, guys. It's a club. Okay. I'm enjoying this little club that we got going here. I'm just really enjoying these conversations that we got going here. And I just want to thank you for listening. Thank you for following me on all of the platforms. That's right, I said it, guys. Get over it. I just really appreciate you. I'm just shooting some gratitude out of my heart straight into your face or wherever you receive your love, guys. Um, don't be gross. Don't be gross. I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you. I appreciate you. Because to be honest, there's the voice in my head. I've been calling it the adversary lately. I kind of like it. Um, the adversary is always telling me that nobody cares what I have to talk about. Nobody cares. The last few episodes, if you didn't check them out, I was talking about addiction, struggling with finding balance with various substances and things that I'm consuming. So if that interests you, check those bad boys out. But every time I try to record something like that, the adversary always is whispering in my ear saying, nobody cares about your addictions. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear that. And then the funny thing is, I always get the opportunity to prove that voice in my head wrong. I get to show myself. It's a good reminder that that voice in my head is a fucking liar. Liar, a deceiver, okay? Because every time the last few episodes that I recorded, I thought like, well, I'm just here to talk. I'm just here to talk about my life, and whoever wants to listen can listen, and here we go. So I ignored the voice in my head, and I proceeded with those addiction and balance episodes. I had so many of you lovely humans reaching out to me and saying that it resonated with you and that you're going through something similar in your own life. I got to hear your stories. People opened up. Like, I just love you guys. Um, so it just kind of encourages me to keep on keeping on and just, you know, doing what I'm doing. So, thank you. I appreciate you guys. And I'm just sort of, enjoying this little gang we got going here. Non-violent gang, guys. Put down your brass knuckles, for heaven's sakes. Today, I want to talk about, lucid dreaming. I experienced my first lucid dream. That's what I want to tell you about, guys, basically. I want to talk about lucid dreaming. I want to talk about aliens or ETs or interdimensionals or angels or demons or whatever label you want to throw on them. We're talking about them. I kind of did a big deep dive lately. I've kind of been just off grid for a bit, just doing my own thing, trying to balance, like I've talked about in the previous episodes. Um, and I've been in researcher mode. That mode can often be exhausting for me, and so I have to kind of go through these cycles of, I really just dive deep. I'm a sponge. I'm gathering information, gathering evidence, putting it together in my brain, figuring out what my thoughts are on it, listening to my intuition. And so that's what I've been doing. And anytime I start getting burnt out on it, then I'm like, okay, time to wrap it up, and I stop diving into that topic and um process it and hit record and talk to you guys about it. So we'll talk about aliens and disclosure and reverse engineering of this UFO tech, things of that nature. But this all falls into the category of ontological shock. That's sort of a new phrase for me. I had to Google it, if I'm being honest with you. So I'll just don't Google it. I got you. I got you back here. Ontological shock is basically when you receive information that completely effing melts your brain. Okay. The one of the dictionary definitions that I found was ontological shock is a profound sense of disorientation. That's putting it lightly. Profound sense of disorientation when one's fundamental assumptions about reality are challenged. Okay, aka brain melting shit. That's what we're talking about today. And it has to do with the aliens, and it has to do with disclosure. I think that plays a major role in it. Is there's this sort of it's hanging in the air. This ontological shock once certain information starts to be released. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before I get started, I have a wholesome story for you guys. I was on my walk yesterday, and first of all, it made me laugh because I was thinking about I was on my walk, and I thought how hilarious it is that if 20-year-old me heard that I was really enjoying going on walks every day, I'd be like, "What the fuck did you just say? Like going on a walk for for fun? Like, all right, old man, like where's your cane, bro?" But guys, I love the walks. I love connecting with nature. And sorry, 20-year-old self, but guess what? I also like bird watching. What do you think about that, buddy? Love listening to the birds. Love figuring out, like, oh my, that's a beautiful bird I see in front of me. I wonder what kind it is. So that's where I'm at now, guys. Don't judge me. So where was I going with that? Oh, I was on my walk, and there's this beautiful rainbow that I see in front of me, and so I take a picture. I put it on Instagram. Guys, if you're not following me on Instagram, A Cult of Misfits, your life is probably a little more gray than it needs to be, guys. So follow me on Instagram if you want to throw a little color into your life. I just told you I took a picture of a rainbow, so I'm quite literally talking about colors here, guys. I posted it on my Instagram. I take nature pictures when I'm on my walk. If that's your bag, then jump on board, guys. So I saw this rainbow. It was a real beautiful moment between me and the all that is. And anyway, beautiful picture, beautiful moment. Just real quiet in the air, etc. I'll just paint a picture for you. So then I keep walking, and it's kind of in a neighborhood, so there's just people kind of milling around. And I'm walking Chi-Chi, and across the street there's a couple. They're like in their 20s. She's looks like a hippie, right? Just kind of a hippie, and he is the opposite. Actually, it's like they're in a sitcom or something. Uh, he's like. He's one of the coolest motherfuckers I've ever seen in my life. I'm being honest with you guys. He was like in his 20s. He was wearing a leather jacket with like zippers, just lots of zippers and buttons, guys. Way too many, but it worked. It worked. He's got like this, his hair is all coiffed. He looks like the Fonz or something from Happy Days. Does anybody even understand that reference? Can I get a shout out? So he's a cool motherfucker. Okay. He's probably got like a switchblade in his back pocket or something. Okay. He was cooler than me is all I'm getting at. And I guess the bar is not too high on that, but like, I'm just saying, I don't have a leather jacket. So anyway, the hippie and the Fonz are walking along, and she starts kind of like shouting at me, like, "Hey, sir, excuse me, sir," like as if like I dropped my wallet or something. "Sir, sir, sir!" And so I look over, and Mr. Cool Guy is kind of like embarrassed. She's like, "Babe," he's like, "Babe, just leave that guy alone. What are you shouting at that guy for, babe?" Like he's embarrassed that she's shouting at me. And she's like, "Sir, sir, sir!" And so I look up, and I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And she grandly points to the sky at the giant fucking rainbow and goes, "Look, isn't it beautiful?" I have never had anybody stop me on the street, a complete stranger, to show me something beautiful in the sky. And it just really hit my heart. And I smiled and I said, "Well, I love that you noticed that. First of all, everybody's walking around here on their cell phones. Guys, I just told you I was on Instagram taking a picture, okay? But like, I gotta be hypocritical here. But people who are just staring at their phone and not aware of their surroundings and just kind of like in a little bubble, I love that people are looking up at the sky and, noticing rainbows and shit. So anyway, I love that she stopped me for that, even though to his great embarrassment. And I said, "I love that you saw that. I love that you noticed that. I love sharing this moment. Like, thanks for pointing it out. I really appreciate it. That's special." And she had a big smile on her face. He was like trying to walk away as quickly as he could. He was just mortified. And as they walk away, I can hear him like, "Why would you stop that guy just for a rainbow? It's just a stupid fucking rainbow. Like, I don't get what the big deal is here." And so, anyway, they're probably not going to be together that much longer. But that's not the point, guys. I'm not a counselor here. I can't figure out what's going on in their relationship. But he was embarrassed about her. But anyway, it was just a wholesome moment to share with a stranger, just looking at the beauty of nature. And, it just kind of makes me happy about where humanity is going. I do feel like there's a shift. I feel like there's a shift currently engaging, and it's not some future event. It's in progress. And it's just these little things where I'm like, I love that. There's a trend on Instagram. Guys, I get it. I'm on my phone again. I get it. Don't point it out. The trend on Instagram about raw dogging it, not sexually, but raw dogging it, going on an airplane flight and not using a device, just staring straight ahead for 6 hours, maybe checking the map out on the headrest in front of you, and just not being distracted by any devices or anything, not watching a movie, etc. Just raw dogging it. And it made me laugh because, the mystics and the ancients have been, raw dogging it for years, guys. The ancient Greeks were wild, guys. But raw dogging it just means no technology, right? People are starting to use flip phones and dumbed down smartphones, quote unquote, that don't have all the apps and shit on it, just to sort of like reconnect and, look at a rainbow with a fucking stranger. Just meditation, just not thinking, right? Just turning off a screen for more than a minute, right? Like, guys, I'm raising my hand here. I'm with you guys. I'm not judgmental. So, anyways, I thought that was a cool story. Let's dive into lucid dreaming. So, guys, I got something in my throat, so just bear with me. I'm taking a drink. Take a drink with you. Let's take a little drink break, guys. My beverage of the day is water. So I really living life here, guys. Lucid dreaming. For years, I've wanted to lucid dream. The first time I heard about it, I was like, "Yep, I definitely want a piece of that." So I tried with all of my might, many times, to do it. You go online. There's a bunch of tips and tricks as to how to sort of get yourself into a meditative state, a trance-like state, or whatever you want to call it, hypnotic state, whatever. And you can control your dreams is what lucid dreaming is, right? This idea that we don't just passively watch the dreams. Like when I wake up in the morning, it's just like, well, I dreamed something. I didn't have any control of that. It's just sort of like what I saw last night. Um, and so I thought the idea of controlling your dreams, recognizing and realizing that you're actually in a dream while you're dreaming, just sounded very intriguing to me. So I had tried unsuccessfully for years, honestly, to do it. And I just, there'd be periods where I just kind of gave up, give it a rest. Maybe it's not time. Maybe I'm not there yet or whatever, vibrationally or spiritually or whatever. So anyway, I would try it off and on, unsuccessfully. So I was explaining this to one of my sisters, and she said she had never heard of lucid dreaming. So I was explaining it to her. And she goes, "Oh, I do that all the time." And my jaw dropped, my fork dropped, all my things dropped. And I was like, "What? Wait, what?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I've been lucid dreaming forever. It's really fucking great." And I was like, "Hold on a minute now. Did you try to do it? Like, have you been actively putting yourself into a trance state and getting into a meditative state?" And she's like, "No, I just do it." And I was like, "Oh wait, you just do it?" Like, I was trying to get a little angry at this point. So I was like, hold on now. We both come from the same genetic pool, and I don't have your magic powers. So, teach me your ways, Obi-Wan Kenobi. She doesn't even know who Obi-Wan Kenobi was. It went over her head, which is disappointing. But I like to test her because her knowledge on pop culture is quite low, and so I find it amusing to ask her how many characters she can name in like Star Wars or Star Trek or just pop culture questions. And on Star Wars, she's like, "I don't know, the little green guy, the guy that floats or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, fine. It's just a fun little game we play." But anyway, she's telling me and I said, "Go on. What do you do in your lucid dreams?" And she's like, "Whatever I want. Fly, like swim through the ocean, like go in outer space, wild shit." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool. It just comes to you naturally." So she's telling me about lucid dreaming. So, anyways, recently, if you haven't been following me, I have been not smoking weed. I took a little break from weed for like a month or two, and within the first week of quitting smoking, all of my dreams came back. When I smoke regularly, I find that I don't remember my dreams the next day, like at all. I'm sure I'm dreaming, but like they're not a part of my life. So once I stopped smoking, all my dreams came rushing back like a tsunami of dreams. So one of these days, I go to bed like normal, and I'm having a dream that I'm in a city that I used to live in, but I can see the sign in front of me in the dream that says something different. So I'm like, no, that's not right. And then I was like, holy shit, I think I'm in a dream right now. And all the advice tells you to just remain calm. So I was like, okay, be cool, be cool. I was trying to be like the guy with the leather jacket is what was happening. Just be cool, bro. Don't freak out. We're in a lucid dream. So I was like, okay, like, well, I haven't practiced for that. I haven't prepared for this. Like, what should I do first? And so I think, okay, everybody flies. I'm just going to try flying, right? It was all kind of hazy. It was all very dreamlike. It didn't seem realistic at all. It was just very dreamy. And so I try flying and I sort of leap off the ground, and it's not a proper Superman flight. It's more like I'm jumping on the moon. It's kind of a big leap. So I just kind of go up in the air and land back in the ground. And I'm like, holy shit, I just thought about flying and then flew in my own dream. I'm controlling my fucking dream. So then I was like, okay, be cool, be cool. What's next? What's next? So I look over and I'm like in a neighborhood in the dream. And so I look over at this bush and I'm like, I'm going to just see if I can set that bush on fire with my mind. And so I look at the bush and it kind of fizzles and sparks a little bit and then does nothing. And so I like focus my mind and I'm like, fire, fire, fire. And then boom, the bush bursts into fire. Guys, I feel like Moses. I feel like Moses getting some info, there might be some tablets on the way, guys, but I'm setting a bush on fire. Got very biblical. And, and I thought like, holy shit, this is nuts. And so then I look over in the dream and there's a cat, just a cat walking around. And I think like, I'm going to multiply the cat. Like that's probably a thing. And as soon as I thought it, I was then looking at like 25 cats. They multiplied. And I was like, this is wild. And then I thought like, I'll call the cats over with my mind. And so I'm like, come here. And all the cats start walking towards me. And I start thinking in the dream, like, this is absolutely insane what's happening. And the dream suddenly ended. And that was it. And that was it. And I woke up just going like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I've tried to recreate it ever since then, and it just nothing, crickets. So I'm sure another one will come, but it just felt like a little gift. Honestly, it felt like a gift from the other side, just giving me a little bit of extra insight that I hadn't had before. So I started thinking a lot about once I had that experience. I would say, without being too dramatic, it was a profound experience. Like I woke up thinking like it was profound. It just sort of opened things up in my mind, and I was like, things I didn't necessarily think were possible until I'd seen it with my own eyes. Right? I didn't really fully understand a lucid dream until I experienced it for myself. And then this idea, I often will talk about this idea that we're living in a simulation or a matrix or um, uh, what's the word I'm trying to think of, or like an illusion, right? And so I talk about that often, but it never really hit home for me until I had this lucid dream. This concept of as above, so below, right? The lower realms, dream realms, or whatever, the higher realms are more and more quote unquote real. Um, and so I started thinking about dreams. Like when you're within your own dream, is that real? Is that reality? Well, when you're dreaming, it sure feels like it, doesn't it? When you're in the dream, everything sure feels freaking real, right? Until you wake up. Until you wake up and you're like, well, that was weird. Huh, that was a wacky dream I just had. It sure felt real, especially if it's something scary and like shakes you awake, right? Like freaks you out. It's like a nightmare. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like you think that shit is real. If you didn't think that the wolf was truly chasing you or whatever the scary thing is in your dream, it wouldn't have woken you up. You wouldn't have been scared of it because you would have known this is fake, but you don't because you think it's real, right? So I believe that the things in our dream are just reflections of something here in a higher realm, right? Quote unquote base reality or real life or whatever you want to call it, right? So when you dream about a wolf, it's not a real wolf. You're not being chased by a real wolf. You're being chased by a representation of what a wolf looks like in the quote unquote real world, right? So I also think that's what's happening in the higher realms here, which we'll get to and elaborate on because it all has to do with the interdimensionality. Whew, that's a doozy. Interdimensionality of this universe that I believe we live in. So we'll dive into that. But this is all part of the same topic here. And so I thought like, okay, if I can actively control my dreams in some way and perhaps practice it, right, and get better and better at it, that if it's possible to control one's dreams, then perhaps it's possible to control one's own reality with our minds, which is what I have talked about frequently, about manifestation, about the power of our minds, how the ancients all talk about how everything is of the mind, literally, question mark. So I'm playing with this idea that if we can manipulate our dreams with our minds, then perhaps we can manipulate this reality of ours with our minds, right? That everything within this 3D matrix that we're in, right, is just a representation of something within the higher dimensions, as above, so below. You follow? And so then I start thinking like, okay, I'm fairly convinced that we're in a false reality. Okay, fine. But how do aliens and ETs and interdimensionals, how do they fit into this thing? Because if there are aliens or ETs, are they simply a part of the illusion as well? Are they really happening here? Or is there something else going on? Are they from outside of this reality, realm, matrix, dimension, etc.? So, I before we dive in, I want to talk about disclosure. But I thought it might be useful because I was asking myself, like, what are my beliefs? What is the Matt Owens cosmology? Cosmology, that's a new one for me too. Had to Google that bad boy. Cosmology is just a society's belief or one's personal beliefs about the nature of reality and our origin story, and are there gods and heaven and hell and what happens after we die, and all of those things are one's cosmology. So feel free to use that one, guys. That's a free one. You can take that on your own and explore the world with it. But I was trying to think, like, what is my cosmology? Because it's changed so dramatically from when I was younger. I grew up in a Christian household, and I had a very Christian cosmology. Um, and so it's been shifting and changing quite dramatically, especially since my quote unquote awakening in 2020. Um, when I just started seeing things in a different way, right? This is a part of that ontological shock of, my eyes seeing and my ears hearing things that I had never heard before, right? My eyes opening to things that were right in front of me this whole time, but I had never seen them before. And I was like, holy shit, how could I have not seen that? Right? Part of this awakening process, this ontological process that we go through. It also goes hand in hand with a dark night of the soul, right? Just sort of this peeling away of layers of who we thought we were, who we think we are, information that we think that we already know about how the government works, or big pharma's role, or big media's role, or big tech's role in things, right? Like past versions of myself, I definitely trusted the US government. Of course I trusted them. They're our leaders. They're here to protect us and guide us. They have our best interest in heart. Why would I not trust the evening news? You're out of your mind. You're a conspiracy theorist. You're nuts. Not trust the news? You're crazy. They're here to give us information. What is wrong with you? There's no propaganda. You're out of your mind. That's not how it works, right? Big Pharma has our best interest in mind. Big Pharma just wants to heal people. Big Pharma is not interested in money over health. You're out of your mind. How dare you accuse these beautiful human beings of giving us life-saving drugs, of trying to manipulate things for profit? That's just, who thinks like that? You're out of your mind. These are the ways I used to think, guys. Until my eyes were opened. And it's not to say that I saw the truth with a capital T and I'm no longer a sheeple and all that nonsense. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's judgmental. It's not like I have all the answers now that I can see things. I can see the truth. Come on. That's your ego talking. It's just about, for me, seeing things in a different perspective. I could just see things in a different way now. And I'm like, oh, okay, hi. Hello. And I had to process a lot of the information because it's brain melting, like I've talked about. And maybe you've gone through a similar process. Hi, cheers. It's fun, right? Ha, ha, it's fun. Wee. And so that's what this whole conversation is about. is mind-bending stuff about being open-minded to these sorts of things. Because there are a lot of people on this planet that are very close-minded, right? This is a part of the big problem that I have with a lot of mainstream religion. I'm trying not to use broad strokes here, but I'm just sort of like doing broad strokes. Um, a lot of people who consider themselves religious, not all of them, but a lot of them. A lot of religious folks are really dug in deep with their beliefs about how things are and aren't. It's basically whatever it says in the book is how it goes, and anything outside of that, I don't think about that sort of stuff. What are your thoughts on reincarnation? I don't know. The Bible doesn't talk about it, so therefore I don't think about it, and it's probably of the devil, right? There's a lot of people who are closed-minded. See, I'm open-minded. I try. Let me say that again. I don't like that. That was my ego talking. I try my best to be open-minded. There are definitely moments where I'm very closed-minded, and in the moments that I find that I'm closed-minded, I try my best to change that programming. I try to open my mind up and my heart up to new perspectives, new ways of looking at things. Even if I disagree with them, that's okay, right? Maybe the Bible isn't what really happened. I'm open to that idea. Now, finally, I had to get there. I had to crack that walnut. Right? The walnut around my heart, the walnut around my brain. Guys, I don't know if you are familiar with this, but there are walnuts around our brains. I know, it's mind blowing. I had to crack those walnuts open, guys. Crack them nuts. Crack them nuts. Put that on a t-shirt. I should start selling that, guys. 1999. Crack them nuts. Right? You got to be open. I wanted to be more open. You can be whatever way you want to be. I wanted to be more open. I don't want to be set in my way. I want to be loose in the saddle. Maybe I believe this today, but maybe tomorrow I'll see a different perspective and be like, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way before. That kind of puts a new color and a new shade on how I view the world. And I like that, right? Maybe Jesus never existed. That's interesting. Let me think about that for a minute. Let me see if that resonates with me. There are certain religious folks who would say that that's blasphemy. I'm going to fucking punch you in the face if you say that again, right? It's a spectrum. Or like, nope, la 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 la. I don't want to hear that. Nope, my brain can't handle that. I don't want to hear that. I don't believe it. It's of the devil. Stop talking about it. Okay, fine. That's fine. We're all in different places. But I want to be open to new ideas, right? Historically, human beings are just very resistant to change, right? Historically, people don't want to think differently than they already think. They don't want to hear new ideas. They don't want to hear different perspectives. That's how wars are started, guys, right? You have a different idea than I do. You're wrong. I'm right. We're going to fight about it. And I think that there's a shift on the planet happening where that's slowly changing. Slowly changing. So what I believe is that I believe that there's a bunch of layers to this dimension, to this universe that we're in. I think that there are different realms or dimensions or layers or whatever word you want to use. And depending on whose cosmology you want to follow and listen, there's 7 or 9 or 11 or whatever number, whoever you're talking to, there's different layers to this thing. But anytime that any of the ancients across the world that never talked to each other are all telling the same exact story or explaining the same exact cosmology, I tend to listen to it. I tend to not just dismiss it as being myth, right? And I fully understand people who say it's complete nonsense, it's a myth, we don't believe those things anymore. I get it. I get it. I totally get it. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, who the heck knows? It's fun to talk about. So I think that there are layers to this thing. Many of the ancient cosmologies say that we're the lowest one. that we're in the 3D material realm is the most dense, difficult, challenging layer that there is. So hi guys, cheers again. And they all have different ways of explaining the different layers in their own way. Okay, so here's what I think is going on. Let's start at the top. I think that the top several layers of this thing, this universe that we're in, these dimensions, these realms, I think that once you go above a certain number, it's beyond our human comprehension. I think that we can try to think about it and put it into, try to wrap our minds around it. But I think that at the end of the day, it's beyond our comprehension. So we're just trying to use human words and human concepts that don't necessarily even come close to describing what we're going to talk about here. Okay. I think that the highest layer is source, the all that is, which again is ineffable, unknowable, beyond our comprehension. You can call it the monad if you're, of a Gnostic persuasion. The ethers, divine consciousness. These are the types of things I'm talking about. Just, the all that is. Okay. So then I think, according to and based on what the ancients all say, um, that below this emanated forth this concept of primordial gods that again are beyond our comprehension. We call them primordial. It's a human word describing something we can't comprehend. So whether it's like the elementals or things of this nature, that sort of put into motion the nature, the spinning of the cosmos types of thing. That's the next level from down, I believe. And then emanating from that came forth. I'm going to clump several things into this just so we can kind of know what we're talking about here. This is what I think that the Christians refer to as God. Okay. This is what the Gnostics refer to as Sophia, or Sophia and the Christos, right? The Christ energy type of a situation. I kind of am starting to put the Anunnaki here, right? I believe that many of the ancients, almost all of them, talked about a pantheon of gods. Right? It wasn't until the Zoroastrians and really um, the Israelites and the Christians came along that this idea that there's only one God. But almost everybody else disagrees and says that there's many gods. Even just on a side note, the Israelites have Yahweh as their God, right? But God, originally Yahweh, and before the Israelites came along, Yahweh was a part of a pantheon. He was one of many gods. He was like the god of agriculture or something. And he honestly wasn't even that powerful of a deity compared to others within the pantheon. And at some point, the Israelites, the Jews, and then the Christians later on, sort of adapted and adopted this guy to be their one true deity. Just a fun little history note for you guys there. So anyway, on this layer, this dimension of the gods, right? I think that that's where the gods are, right? This divine layer, maybe the heavenly layer, whatever you want to call it. The Anunnaki are there. I think that that's a part of them. We refer to them as gods because to us they appear as gods with powers and abilities and consciousness levels and vibrations that are real high. Um, I think that the tall whites, if you want to talk about aliens or ETs, I think this is kind of what the tall whites are. Like if you ever saw the movie Prometheus, these creator beings that came to the planet and seeded the planet, right, with their own essence. These ideas of creator beings, right, that sort of breathe their own life or their own seed, depending on who's telling the story, into the earth, into the mud, into the dirt. Um, you know, uh, Hybridization with primates, depending on who you're talking to, it's all kind of the same thing. A divine spark was given to us, and we then became a hybrid of divinity and humanity at the same time, type of a situation. Okay. So then I believe the next layer down is sort of where we're talking about angels, the watchers, right? In the Bible, in the Jewish text, it talks about these beings, these divine beings that are called watchers that are watching over the planet, right? I think that it's the angels. If you want to talk about ETs or aliens, I think we're talking about like the Nordics, right? These tall, beautiful, you know, divine looking beings. Hot is what I'm saying. They're hot guys. I think that's what we're talking about. Is it inappropriate to call an angel hot, guys? I don't know. If you're Mesopotamian and their cosmology, they talk about the Ajiji, sort of these semi-divine beings, these demigods, if you will, that sort of thing. Ultimately, in this category, we're talking about beings that are obedient to God, right? They're kind of quote unquote divine workers for God, if you will, right? Sort of, well, minions is maybe the wrong word, but like they're obedient to God and they do tasks that He asks, such as watching the earth, right? Like these angels are watchers. So they're these semi-divine beings. Okay, then the next lower level going down. We're talking about some of these stories talk about how the watchers, these angels from the higher realms, came down to earth and became fallen angels, upsetting God or the gods, right? These upsetting the creator beings, upsetting mommy and daddy. And so these fallen angels then come to the earth and basically start causing a bunch of chaos. According to the Bible, hi, I didn't know this until I started looking into it. My pastors at my church never talked about this, but it's right freaking there in Genesis. These angels came down, fallen angels, and they started sleeping around with the human ladies and the human gentlemen. But they started having babies with humans. These, we're talking about hybrids again, right? I know it's weird. It sounds very sci-fi to talk about hybrids, but that's what we're talking about. And so these fallen angels, you can call them fallen angels. You can call them reptilians, right? You can call them demons. I believe the Hindu called them asuras, right? Just sort of these naughty semi-gods, semi-divine beings, or prior divine beings, knocking around with the humans, knocking boots with the humans. Reptilian shapeshifters wear boots, guys. I don't know if you knew that or not. Part of the lore. Knocking boots with the humans, and they're having these hybrid babies that are abominations, right? We're talking about the Nephilim. We're talking about giants. We're talking about monsters. Maybe we can even lump in, vampires if you want to get crazy and things of that nature. This is kind of where I picture like the gray aliens, right? The Zeta Reticulans or whatever you want to call them. I think that they're kind of in this category of just sort of an abomination that's just unnatural, right? And it's really interesting because all of the ancient stories talk how these abominations and what's happening was angering the gods, and this is what caused the great flood, the great cataclysm. And I also find it interesting that they all talk about it in these terms. The stories all are very similar. In the Mesopotamian version of this, it's funny to me. The Mesopotamia is just around ancient Iraq, the Tigris and the Euphrates River, kind of the oldest known civilization according to mainstream archaeology. Except for Göbekli Tepe, maybe, question mark. Um, so anyways, they're all talking about the same thing. And there's actually geological evidence for a great flood. So I tend to take these things literally when they all talk about it and there's geological evidence for it, etc. But I think that after the great flood, that the gods were not able to wipe the face of the planet. I think that there were survivors. All of the ancient tales that talk about a flood also talk about some sort of a Noah character, that there's some of the gods feel bad for the humans and whisper in their ear and say, hey, buddy, let me show you how to build a boat, right? Get all your friends and animals on this thing because I'm not supposed to save you, but like something's coming, so you best get in the boat. That story is pervasive in all of them. And so there's some human survivors, which, as I've said before, we are hybrids of some sort. Um, and I believe that these divine beings that helped us, fallen angels or whatever you want to call them, or God in the Bible or whatever, helped us out. There's these Native American tribes, the indigenous, like the Hopi Indians, for example. I just as I was looking into this, the Hopi Indians have part of their mythology, cosmology, is what they call the ant people, like the insect crawling on the ground, ant people. And as I started looking into it, I realized that there are indigenous tribes all over the world, Africa, the Aboriginal tribes in Australia. They all have these cave paintings. That's how far back it goes. Cave paintings, 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, whatever, long time ago. They all depict ant people, aka gray aliens. They all look like gray aliens. They all look like they have these big long heads, big oval eyes, little slit mouth, right? Why are people drawing these in caves 50,000 years ago? That's pretty nutty. right? These ant people. The Hopi Indians say that the ant people saved their civilization twice in their mythologies. There were two cataclysms, and both times the ant people came from underground. They have tunnels and caves and shit underground. They came up, grabbed the Hopi Indians to save them, brought them underground, protected them from the cataclysm. The last cataclysm, the flood, if you don't know, was allegedly, scientists pointing towards this, that there was an asteroid or series of asteroids or meteorite or whatever that essentially crashed into Earth in several places, but mostly over North America. There was a giant ice cap there at the time. We were just slowly coming out of an ice age, and these meteorites all slammed into the planet, essentially vaporizing all of the ice that had come down across North America and covering large portions of the Earth at that point because we were in an ice age. And it started to release all of this, it vaporized it, so it turned it into water, causing the global waters to rise over 400 feet, aka the Great Flood. And as it slammed into the planet, it caused all of this dust and dirt and all this shit to fly into the atmosphere, causing essentially darkness, right? Because the sunlight then can't penetrate this cloud of, it's like a nuclear winter, right? Where it just sort of blocks the sun for years. And so that plunged us back into another ice age, actually, right after that. So anyway, after these cataclysms are about to happen, these ant people come and save everybody, right? So I find that very interesting. So that's sort of my cosmology. And what I'm starting to ask myself is, and starting to and believe, is that I don't know if these aliens, or ETs as we call them, are what we think that they are, right? In the same way that none of this is actually real. I'm putting it into that context because I think it's very important. I think that a lot of times when people are talking and having these conversations, that we need to sort of put it in the frame of, yeah, but none of this is actually real, right? So what does that actually mean? And so if this 3D realm is a dream, right? I won't get into the specifics of why I think that it is, but let's just assume that it is. If this place is a dream, then the higher realm, the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension or whatever, is quote unquote more real than this one. And so that when we see things that enter this realm, like aliens or demons or angels or flying saucers, I think that these are representations of something in a higher realm that we can't quite wrap our minds around. And so our human mind and our human eyeballs and our human sensory systems are trying our best to interpret what we are seeing in front of us. What's really interesting is that UFOs have changed over the years. As I started diving into this stuff, I started realizing that in the 1800s, people were seeing flying blimps, right? Like dirigibles in the air. And it was in America, and it was only for a period of 1 or 2 years, which I find really interesting that it was reported on. But people were reporting seeing these flying airships that had lots of lights on them. And I looked up the year, it was like 1882 or whatever, it doesn't matter. And then I looked up, when were airships invented? When were the first airships in America? And the answer was like around 1901. So they were seeing these airships before airships were even introduced to America. Okay, that's really freaking interesting, don't you think? And so that's a UFO. And I've started looking at the history of UFO over the years and how people are reporting it. And it's interesting that it manifests differently in different time periods. It always appears, UFOs always appear to be slightly ahead, or a ways ahead of our current technology. And so in the 1800s, it was manifesting itself as flying airships with weird lights. They were seeing it as like a blimp, right? Which is slightly ahead of where we were technologically at the time. Okay, then around Roswell, we start seeing these flying saucers, right? That just seems slightly beyond what we currently have. We had jets and stuff, right, right around that time, and airplanes, and so we could kind of comprehend a flying saucer, like a real fancy fighter jet. Essentially, it was just kind of beyond what we could perceive, right? Back in the ancient times, just to take it back beyond blimps and airships, the ancient Greeks and stuff, they were all reporting, chariots of fire in the sky. Right? It's a chariot, a real fancy, advanced, divine chariot. Right? Then fast forward to airships, blimps. Then fast forward to flying saucers. Now fast forward again to current times, and we start seeing not, when was the last time flying saucers were reported? That's so 1950s. That's so 1960s. They've upgraded, right? Now we're perceiving them as like Tic Tacs, right? These weird Tic Tac shaped UFOs that can, apparently bend through space and time and move with no propulsion system and seamlessly enter the air and the water without skipping a beat. Right, that can travel 1,800 feet or whatever in 1 millisecond. Right, boy, that's just beyond our current technology. So, but that's probably what they're doing, right? Now we're starting to get reports of like orbs, weird orbs in the sky moving around, right? Just slightly advanced. Like we don't have orbs, but I can picture it in my head. So I guess that does seem kind of more advanced than a UFO, right? It's just, I think that the way we perceive things with our human mind are what's actually coloring this whole alien thing. In the same way that when people have a spiritual, a really intense spiritual experience, something supernatural where you see a divine being, or you have a vision, or you have a really intense fucking dream, things of that sort. Depending on who you are and what your human filters are, right? If you're a Christian, and you have an experience like that, you're more likely to see Jesus Christ in front of you, right? If you're Hindu and you have that experience, you're probably going to see Krishna or whatever, some sort of a divine blue-skinned being in front of you, right? If you're of a Christian persuasion, you might see an angel, something with wings that looks like a beautiful human, right? Because that's what our brains are just like. "Meh," that's what can't process what we're actually looking at here. So our brains just make it look like a bright being with wings because that's all we can process. I think that's what's happening here. Same thing with UFOs and divine beings and angels and demons. We're just trying to put human eyeballs onto something, and we're trying to wrap human minds around things that we can't quite wrap our minds around. Right? That's what I think is going on here. And so when we talk about things like disclosure, I think there's two disclosures going on here. I think it's multi-tiered. I think the first level of disclosure is world governments disclosing what they know, because I think it's clear they know a little bit more than the general public. But what I'm about to say is, I don't think they know that much, guys. That's what I think the big secret. Let me start out first before we dive in here. I think it's very complicated what's going on here. Okay, I think it's very complicated. There isn't just one thing that it is. That's what I'm learning here. Is that it's multi-layered. There's a lot going on. A lot of it is just kind of too much to process, right? And so that's kind of what I think. That no matter how much we talk about it and dive deep, I think that we're not even covering the full surface here. We're just trying to wrap our little puny human minds around it, guys. And so I think that the government knows some stuff, right? I do think that the beings, or the phenomenon, as it's known in certain circles, which I kind of like. It sounds kind of mysterious and badass. So the phenomenon is communicating with our governments. I think that there is technology that our government has discovered, and I do think that. To a large degree, they're trying to figure out how they can use it for defense purposes and military purposes, and how can we use this to kill other humans, right? That's just how our government views things. And so I do think that there's some of that going on. I do think that they have given some of that technology to private aerospace companies. I think that there's money involved there. I think that if they can develop the technologies for themselves, that there's a lot of money to be made for military purposes, or for consumer purposes, technologies like the internet and et cetera, et cetera. Um, I do think that some tech has been given to humans along the way. I mean, it's pretty insane to think of our evolution, technologically speaking. Like we were, for hundreds of thousands of years, we were basically primates. And then suddenly in the 20th century, we become super geniuses and start building things at such an advanced rate, like it's unnatural. Sorry, it's unnatural. I think that we were helped along the way. I don't think that suddenly we just built upon previous technologies and now we have quantum computers. I don't think that happened. Guys, 100 years ago, we didn't have electricity. Okay, it's pretty weird. It's pretty weird that we currently have quantum computers and the internet and social media, and 100 years ago we didn't have electricity. So that's pretty nutty. And for hundreds of years before that, we didn't have any electricity either. It was a pretty slow incline as far as technology went. Okay. The printing press is a big deal to us at some point, guys. That's kind of crazy. And now we have the internet. So big leaps, big leaps. Something is going on here. There has been an acceleration, a quickening. Something is obviously happening to advance our species. And I think that there are beings such as, you know, the Anunnaki or Pleiadians or whatever you want to call these beings that are helping us out benevolently, that there's a major shift happening in terms of not just our consciousness and awakening process, but I think that as a species, we're right on the cusp of something really freaking huge. And I don't necessarily know what that is, but I feel like if you're anything like me, you just kind of feel that something is coming, something is around the bend. A big paradigm shift is right around the corner. So that's what I think all of this plays into. And I think that there are beings that are here to help us and help us along to the next level, the next chapter of humanity. And I also think that there are beings on this planet that are anti human, that they have their own maybe selfish pursuits in mind, and they do not care about us. And you can call them the reptilians or the Nephilim or the shapeshifters or whatever. But um, I do think that that's what's happening here. I do think that there is a force of beings on this planet that are manipulating humans in a very obvious way. I feel like I don't think that it's human beings that are doing this. The ancient stories, especially the Mesopotamians, talk about how these angelic beings were created to do the work of the gods. And then they got tired and bitchy about it and said, we don't want to work anymore. Create new beings to do this work for us. And the gods said, okay, fine, and created these lower beings to do are a part of that mix too. And so I sometimes wonder if maybe humans were created to work for the gods, meaning that we're here to create technology, right? And they're kind of helping us along a little bit because we're ultimately maybe helping them out in the other dimensions or something. So anyway, just a fun little thing to think about. But I think that these beings are kind of bleeding into our reality, into our realm, and I believe that some of them are manipulating us, and they're trying to take over this realm. And I think that ultimately, if you follow the ancient stories, especially the Bible and Revelation, that you can call them good, you can call them evil, you can throw whoever under whatever team you want. But I think that the people that are trying, the beings that are the dark beings, maybe, are that are trying to overthrow and take over this world, are about to be shut down. I think that we're on the end of an epic cycle here, and many of the ancient stories talk about how the end times. This is sort of how it goes down, and it does feel like we're in upside down world, right? And it does feel like we've been talking about this for thousands of years. The end, thinking that we're in the end times is nothing new, of course. But I just find it really interesting that a lot of the things that were predicted to come to be are perhaps slowly coming to be, right? And so, getting back to the government, I think that part of the big secret is that I don't think they know that much. That's what I think the big secret is. I think that there's weird shit happening out there that they don't know how to combat it or how to deal with it. And I think that a large part of it is that they don't want to admit that, right? Because if they disclose that they know that there are interdimensional beings here, or that there are 3D beings that have, the ant people or the reptilians that have been here and perhaps look just like us and can intermix within societies flawlessly, that would freak a lot of people out. That would be a pretty ontological shock for a lot of people to know that there are beings that look just like us that have been amongst us since forever. That's terrifying. What are they doing here? What is their agenda? That would freak a lot of people out. It would freak a lot of religious folks out who think that they're demons, right? And then if there's demons walking around us, then they're going to look to the government and say, hey, what are you guys doing about this? We rely on you, and so we need you to take care of us here. Like, what are you doing about the whole demon problem? Like, you guys got a backup plan for the demons, right? For the reptiles, for the Nephilim? Like, how are you dealing with that, U.S. government? And the government is like, we got nothing. Actually, our weapons do nothing against them because they're freaking interdimensional beings. So that's kind of a bummer. And we can't do anything about it. And that would really upset a lot of people. And that could lead to, major civil unrest, to put it lightly. And so I think that that's part of the reason why they're keeping their fucking lips shut, because they know there's some weird shit going on out there. They know they can't do anything about it. They know it's not the Russians or the Chinese. They know that their weapons can't do anything about it. So they're just kind of like trying to like not talk about it, right? There's also the fun little theory that I just heard last week that, perhaps our minds are so powerful and we can create things within our reality with our thoughts. And so perhaps the reason why the government is like, stop talking about it, stop fucking talking about it, is because the more that we talk about it, the more that we bring it to life, the phenomenon or whatever, right? So they literally don't want us talking about it or thinking about it, because then it will start to manifest in our world, and they know that, and they're scared of it, and they don't want us to do it. So stop talking about it. They would rather that the populace thinks of it as, kooky flying saucers. Yeah, that's it. Aliens. Go with that. Yeah, maybe they're Martians. I don't know. Think about that, please. Because I think that they don't want us maybe to think about the real thing, whatever's actually going on, because we don't want it to manifest in real life. So anyway, just a fun little thing to think about. Yeah, good luck going to sleep tonight thinking about that, guys. So in terms of reverse engineering this alien technology or these alien ships, I do think that their ships are in some hangar somewhere, 20 miles under the ground, or wherever these hangars are, right? These secret bases or whatever. I think that that's out there. Yes, I think there's non-human biologics on board, or whatever that means, right? Sure. But I think that part of the big secret is they can't figure out any of it. That's what I think the big secret is that after all this time, they barely know anything. I think that what's happening is it's like a chimpanzee trying to reverse engineer a Boeing 747. I think that the chimpanzee might figure out how to turn the lights on and off. Maybe. The chimpanzee, given enough time, might figure out how to get it to kind of roll on the tarmac a little bit, right? Maybe glean how to make a seat that's on the airplane, right? How to make a hatch. Okay, good job, buddy. You made a window. Good for you. You really figured out this tech, didn't you? I think that we are chimpanzees trying to figure out a fucking 747 UFO. I think that the U.S. government and the aerospace industry is trying their best, and I think that they don't know what the fuck is going on. I think that we are too we're primates, guys. I think that we have no idea what the hell's going on. And I think that certain people that are in the know, okay, fine. You saw some weird shit. That's fine. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. I spent the last month diving in deep, just listening to all of these military people, these admirals, these guys that aren't fucking around, right? And I use my own intuition, as I strongly encourage all of you to, right? Some of the stories I listen to, some of the people I listen to, I think it's bullshit. My intuition's like, nope, I don't think so. Sorry, buddy. I don't believe you. That's fine. Cast it aside. But there's a lot of people that I just want to hear what they saw. I don't care if they're trying to convince me. A lot of these guys are not trying to convince you of anything. They're like, look, believe me or not, I'm just telling you what I saw here. Right? Weird shit in the oceans. Listening to a lot of Navy guys. There's this Navy admiral just talking about, like, there's a lot of weird shit going on down there. Right? These UFOs or UAPs or whatever the fuck, they're down in the oceans. And these submarine captains and shit are saying, yeah, they zoom up on us. We think that they're torpedoes. We think we're about to die. And then it just sort of stays off our port bow. And we can't see it because submarines don't have windows, guys. So they're just looking at these things on their sensors, not knowing what the fuck it is. And then it just like, zooms away underwater at insane speeds. What's that? No idea. Okay, cool. Can you guys stop it? No? Oh, right on. Right on. That's cool. Why are we spending millions of dollars on this tech and all these fancy submarines if you guys can't stop a freaking UFO down there? Like, what are we doing here? So a lot of people are going to be upset by that, knowing that the government can't do a thing about it. And I think that, frankly, they don't know that much. I think that's part of the big secret. We expect them to know everything and have full disclosure. I think they don't know what the fuck's going on. And to admit that would be brutal, right? Then they'd have to admit that to the Russians, to all the other world governments, because we don't know if Russia truly knows or not. Maybe, maybe not. But I think everybody's kind of like, yeah, we don't know what the fuck's going on around here. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel the more I dive into this stuff, I feel like the less I know. I was always into like just paranormal stuff, and I really loved the X-Files as a teenager. I loved the X-Files, and the face on Mars, and the mysteries of the pyramids, and just all this kind of fun stuff to look into, ghosts and stuff. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe aliens did build the pyramids. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was just kind of fun to think about, and like I was open-minded about it. Like, maybe aliens built the pyramids, but I never really dug too deep into it. You know, crop circles, and cattle mutilations, and flying saucers taking people up in a beam of light, and just, I don't know, it's kind of fun to think about, right? But I never dug too deep on it. People would tell their stories on like Art Bell. Loved Art Bell. Loved me some Art Bell. Um, and so I'd listen to their stories, but at the end of the day, I didn't think about it beyond that. Beyond like, yeah, maybe. I don't know, maybe. Until recently, until 2020, honestly, is when it first started. When I kind of started my awakening, and I started looking into things I had never looked into before, because it caused an ontological shock. Right? It was the beginning of my stripping away process of all the things that I thought that I knew. Right? It was around this time that I started looking into, was the moon landing faked? Right? Again, I'd always been open-minded to it. Like, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's kind of kooky to think about, but never looked into it. Stanley Kubrick? What? Never looked into it. But then when I started you know what I Googled? The first thing I Googled was, why do some people think the moon landing was faked? I just want to see why they think that. Right? This is part of cracking that walnut open. Why? I'm not, don't try to convince me. Don't try to convince me. I'm just trying to be a little open-minded. So crack the walnut open. Just, why do people think this? I'll make my own conclusions. Thank you very much. And then I started looking into why people think the moon landing was faked. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, I get it. Okay, that's actually some compelling evidence there. Okay, I get it. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You're right. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that's weird. So now I'm a person that thinks that the moon landing was fake. So, right? And it's not in stone, right? If God himself came down here and said, look, the moon landing was real, okay, I'd be like, all right, fine. I don't know. I'm not attached to it. Not attached to it. But now that I've looked into it, now that I've weighed the evidence, I'm like, yeah, I'm convinced. Okay. Same thing. And then my next thing I Googled, why do some people think 9/11 was a conspiracy theory? Whoa, that was a fun rabbit hole. Now I'm a believer. Okay. I'm a believer because I looked into it. Okay. There are some things that I don't believe. I dove down the rabbit hole, and I came to a conclusion, and I made up my mind. I don't think Bigfoot is real. I don't. That's fine. Right? I looked into it. I weighed it with my own intuition. I thought about it. Nope, don't think it's real. Listen to the stories, right? People's reports, the photos. Don't think it's real. Okay. It kind of boggles my mind that there's a lot of people, and this is just a different perspective, but there's a lot of people out there, specifically in the academic communities, and academia, and in the sciences, that refuse to believe something is real unless they can hold it, taste it, touch it, measure it repeatedly. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. It's not real. And to be honest, I totally understand that perspective. Like, I get it. I get it. You guys need to see it, or you don't believe it. That's fine. I'm all for skepticism. I'm myself a skeptic, but I want to see all the evidence. And there's a lot of closed-minded people. There's a lot of closed-minded skeptics out there. A lot of closed-minded people who refuse to look into whether the moon landing is fake because they've already made up their mind. They don't want to hear why other people think that because that's too weird, that's too crazy. I'm not going to believe that, so I'm not even looking at it. La 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 la. I don't want to look at it. Right? Then there's open-minded skeptics. Like I like to consider myself that. Who's willing to say like, I don't know, it sounds like bullshit. Let me look into it. I want to hear what the quote unquote crazy people have to say, and I want to hear what the mainstream people have to say, and then I want to make a decision. And that decision is not in stone. Right? Subject to change. Asterisk. So I'm open to everything. I'm all about being skeptical. But I think that we've sort of been we've gone away from who we truly are. We're these divine beings that have intuition that is tapped into the all that is. And that's such a useful tool that I didn't know it was a part of my being. I didn't know I could tap into intuition, tap into that voice. That's not the voice in my head, but the voice in my heart, the voice in my gut. It's telling me what's true and what's not true, what to listen to and not to listen to. And so a lot of people in academia, the science community, need to have physical proof, otherwise they won't believe. Right? Listening to a bunch of stories about people's interactions with gray aliens, hundreds and thousands of reports of interactions with these beings or demons or angels or Pleiadians or gray aliens or reptilians or tall whites or whatever. They've all been reported. And it's just like in the court of law, right? Like people like Bill Cosby or Harvey Weinstein were arrested based on people's stories, right? Based on their interaction with these people. There's no hard evidence. I didn't follow the trials. There might be, but from what I understand, there's no hard evidence. There's no photographic proof that these men did those things to these women, right? They're just taking their word for it. And if it's just one woman saying it, it's like, well, I'm a little skeptical. Let me hear what her story is. But like, she might be looking for some attention or money or fame or whatever, or exploitation or whatever. So one person, maybe. What else? What else? Let me hear the story. But then when another woman comes forward and another woman comes forward and then dozens of women come forward, now I'm starting to listen. Now my ears are perking up. Now I'm like, okay, there's probably something to this if lots of people are coming out of the woodwork saying that they also had a similar experience, right? So it's the same thing with UFOs and Area 51 or whatever. All these military people, they're all saying the same thing, right? All these people that have interacted with gray aliens, they all say the same thing. They all say that these gray aliens are like part of a hive mind, that they're all either like AI drones or clones, or they're kind of half biological, half technological, that they have telepathy and some other kind of weird things that they can do, but they don't appear sentient or have consciousness or feelings or emotions or anything. Borg from Star Trek, if you're into that, it's just sort of this cyborg that's half biological, half AI technological. So that's what these gray aliens are reportedly, because I've listened to all their stories and I believe them. Right? There's also the idea that these gray aliens are minions to the reptilians, minions to the gods, minions to something higher, something with a soul, perhaps. I don't know. Then I started looking into like the reptilians. I always just thought like, the royal family being reptilian, that's crazy. I mean, maybe, but like, I'm open-minded, but that's kind of far-fetched, right? So, like the image of our creator, we're made in the image of our creator. So maybe our creators are still here on the planet and they look just like us because we look just like them. But the idea that there's these kind of maybe demonic beings, fallen angels or whatever, that look like fucking demons that would scare the shit out of everybody if they actually knew that they were here amongst us. I think that's part of why the government isn't saying things, because they're like, yeah, there are beings here, but if you look at them, you're going to freak out because they're terrifying looking. I think that's part of what's going on here. So there's these women saying that not only were they dating these guys that were reptilian, but um, that they often would have relations with each other, right? And and it was, and several of them described it kind of into detail, right? Like, if you're interested, check it out. But um, with the idea that there's these fallen angels, these watchers that came down and slept with the human women. I feel like they're still down here. I feel like they're still down here, and that's what's still happening. So I just feel like there's that going on. And then, the Mesopotamian stories talking about the Anunnaki creating humans, they never said that they left. They never said they left. And so I wonder if they're just kind of here this whole time, monitoring us, right? Having a fleet of angels or whatever, or watchers watching over us and helping out with divine jobs that need done, sort of intermediaries between the heavens and the earth. But I just think that at the end of the day, that they're all just representations and emanations of something higher that we frankly can't fully comprehend. And so that's why I think there's a spiritual component to it and a consciousness component to it, is because there are angels and demons. That's how we interpret these beings, right? With horns or wings, but I think at the end of the day, it's just an interpretation. In the same way that the wherever you're sitting right now or standing right now is just a part of your brain interpreting what is in front of you. That I think that we're just interpreting these things that we can't fully comprehend. So there's the idea that like these reptilians are here because they don't have a soul, they don't have consciousness in the same way that we do. And so perhaps part of their agenda, um, according to people that believe such things, right? I just like to hear. I just like to hear it all. That they're here for our souls, right? You hear about the devil wanting to take our souls. I think that there might be something to that, right? You get a little wacky and talk about, soul recycling technology up on the moon, and they're taking our souls and recycling them, and we're stuck in this cycle of reincarnation, which also goes in line with what the ancients say about reincarnation. Many of them talk about, the Hindus and the Eastern philosophies, and they talk about how we're stuck in this reincarnation cycle, that perhaps these beings or entities or demons or whatever are trapping us in this cycle of reincarnation. And the ancients talk about how to get out of that cycle, right? How to get out of this cycle of reincarnation by becoming enlightened, or whatever they call it, by basically accepting reality as it is, right? Just staying now and in the present, you know, acting out of love, changing your heart, facing your fears, these sorts of things, in order to achieve liberation from the endless cycle of reincarnation and to liberate oneself. So I think it's interesting that they all kind of talk about this sort of a concept, this sort of a battle between good and evil happening on this planet. And I don't like to use those words because good and evil is just a matter of perspective, right? The bad guys never think they're the bad guys. So the demons don't think they're the bad guys. We are all an aspect of the all that is, of source. And so whether you're on team angel or whether you're on team demon, you're still an emanation of the all that is, the greatness, right? Source energy. And if I believe in reincarnation, then theoretically we can reincarnate into a demon or a butterfly or a lion. Is the lion evil because it eats and kills an animal, right? Is a crocodile evil because it eats an antelope? No. I can see why the antelope might think that. Right? There in the Marvel comics, there is this character I think called Galactus. Maybe I got that wrong. Maybe I got it right. Doesn't matter. And Galactus would go around and devour entire planets, just destroying life on massive scale. Billions of people would die because Galactus had to eat. Right? He was a being that consumed planets, and so all the heroes in the comic, right? All the good guys were trying to stop Galactus. But Galactus is like, bros, leave me alone. I'm just trying to eat here. Like, this is how I stay alive. Like, buzz off, right? But they were calling him evil, bad guy. We got to stop this guy. He's killing billions of people every time he takes a bite. We got to stop this guy at all costs, right? But he didn't see himself as a bad guy, just trying to get a bite to eat. Same thing with the lion. Same thing with all of the quote unquote bad guys that we throw that label onto. They're just trying to eat. They're just trying to do what they think is right. Doesn't make them right or wrong, doesn't make them good or evil. For all our aspects, the yin and the yang of the all that is. Hearing these stories, I realized that there are stories that are terrifying involving the gray aliens, for example, or terrifying involving a reptilian shapeshifter or whatever. But there are also other stories that say, I encountered the same being and wasn't scared at all. Many of these people who have had these experiences with the phenomenon have said that I had no fear in my heart and they didn't scare me at all, right? There's this one guy that said when he was a child, he found this little hole in a tree that he crawled into just because that's what boys do. And he found a cave in there, like another dimensional cave. And he was talking to, he was like 8 years old or whatever. And he said he was talking to some reptile men and he wasn't scared at all. And they were talking to him telepathically, as they do. And they said, we've been expecting you. Come in. And they talked to him for a bit and then let him go. But like there's many experiences that say I wasn't scared at all. Some of them even say like they just kind of had pity for them. They just kind of felt bad for the reptilian. They have a lot of anger and aggressiveness to them apparently. And so it's just kind of like, oh, that guy's going through a lot, that poor reptilian, right? So having compassion for another being. Because there's no compassion and love if you're hating on a demon, frankly, right? Does Jesus call us to love our enemies? Why is nobody talking about loving demons, right? Well, they're out to get us. They're the opposite of God. They're bad. This is just now come to me. Like, why are we hating on the demons? And guys, I'm not pro-demon. We're just having a philosophical conversation here. But I'm just saying that if we're to be called by Jesus Christ to have unconditional love for all of God's creation, then that includes the stuff that we don't like, the good stuff and the bad stuff, right? Jesus didn't say only love good people. That's interesting. He said, love the bad ones too. Love your enemies. And let me say this. I haven't spoken to one Christian who loves themselves a demon. I haven't talked to one Christian that is pouring out love and light to evil demonic beings, right? We're often scared of them. We often condemn them. If they're real, we're just having a conversation. But I try my best. I'm definitely not there, guys. But I try my best to be aware of and actively love my enemies. It's so fucking hard. It's definitely not easy. I'm not up on the mountaintop saying, love your enemies, guys. Come on, get your shit together. Like when somebody does something wrong to you or slights you or offends you or does some terrible thing to you, real hard to love that person. I was just talking to my son the other night and I said, like, it's hard to love like revenge feels good for a minute. Sounds good on paper, but it's just, you're just doing exactly what they're doing back to them. That's what revenge is. You know what he said to me too? He's like, hey, Dad, do you know why Spider-Man doesn't ever kill his bad guys? Kill his enemies? I thought it was a funny joke. And I was like, yeah, what? Like there's some big setup or something. And he goes, this is something that you would say, Dad. He doesn't kill his enemies because then he would be just as bad as they are. Oh, that brought a wee tear to my eye. I said, oh, son, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Right? Not to lower yourself to their level. Well, they hurt me, so I'm going to hurt them back. I want to hurt them back more. What do you think about that? That'll feel good. Right? But every time I've taken revenge on somebody or have that in my heart, it's real heavy. It makes my heart and spirit real heavy. Like all of the hours that I've spent during the day just fucking hating somebody, just dwelling on what they fucking said to me or dwelling on that shit that they did to me 20 years ago. Oh, that's wasted energy. How much energy have I wasted just fucking hating people? A lot. A lot. Most of my life. I hate that other political party. I hate those people. They're fucking idiots. I hate my customers. I hate people from from here or from there. I just had a lot of hate in my heart, as many of you perhaps do. And so I've been working on reprogramming that shit. I realized that that's heavy shit, dragging me down. And if I'm to elevate my consciousness, I got to let that shit go. And to be honest, like I was telling my son, it feels so much better to love somebody, right? The adversary, that voice in your head, is telling you not to forgive that person, not to be kind back, but to blast them with love, right? Because the last thing a bully or your enemy or your antagonist expects is love. The last thing they expect is love. When somebody is screaming in your fucking face or they're actively doing something to hurt you or harm you, the last thing that they expect is a hug from you or understanding from you. Guys, this is just coming through. I'm loving it. So try surprising your enemy. Try surprising your arch nemesis with some love, right? Because as soon as you start forgiving that demon, metaphorically or literally, as soon as you start forgiving that demon, you're already winning, right? You're rising above it. And it feels so good to rise higher than it, to rise above it, because then it doesn't bother you anymore. It doesn't scare you anymore, right? So many of these people don't want to talk about that dark stuff. That's scary. I get it. I get it. But once I taught myself to not let it scare me, to not let it take control over me, to not allow it to have any power over me, then I'm not scared of it anymore. When I was scared of the darkness, when I was scared of demons and dark forces and all of that, I was living in a constant state of fear. And I've learned to a large degree to let that go. And so maybe aliens are demons. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm not scared of it. Right? So I said earlier, the first part of disclosure was the government disclosing what they know and don't know, or the aerospace companies disclosing what they know and don't know. And I believe that the second part of disclosure is the phenomenon or the ETs revealing themselves when we're ready. And I feel like we might be on the edge. We might be coming close to a turning point here where we are ready to see certain things. I watched a lot of Star Trek. I was just watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, by the way, if you've checked it out. Love it. Love it. Big fan of it. There are some Star Trek series that I'm not necessarily a fan of as much, but this one really knocks it out of the park. It's got an old school feel to it, the original series feel to it. So check it out on Paramount Plus if you're interested. Guys, this is not a paid advertisement. I just fucking love Star Trek. Anyway, so in Star Trek, there's a thing called the Prime Directive. Their Prime Directive is to not interfere or interact with any species on any planets that are advancing their civilization until they've developed warp drive, the warp engines that allow them to travel the stars. So that's kind of their barometer is we don't contact people until they've developed technology that can interact with us, until they're ready to meet an alien, right? And so to a large degree, I think we're just not ready for it yet. I think there's still a lot of fear. I think that's shifting slowly, but I think there's a lot of fear on this planet, right? And the idea that there are beings here and they've been here perhaps longer than we have, that's terrifying to a lot of people. And that we can't do anything about it and that they look all freaky. The first time a human saw a Klingon, I'm sure they freaked out about it but at some point we're not ready for it, and at some point we are ready for it. And I think that in some way our movies and media and entertainment are kind of acclimating us to this, getting us ready to meet our galactic brothers and sisters in some way. But I don't know. It's just really interesting to think about. So at the end of the day, I think that we will get there if we don't kill ourselves. But I think annihilate ourselves. But I think that. I think that we're heading in that direction of not annihilation, but rather there are beings that are looking out for us and are sort of nurturing our expansion of consciousness. In some way, I think that this 3D realm is a nursery of sorts, right? That we're little babies, or we're little consciousness babies, and we're learning to navigate that world. And once we're ready for it, we can roam the universe and all the realms and the multiverse and all of that stuff. But I think that right now we're just meant to sort of be in this nursery, right? We're not meant to explore quite yet. We're like the newborn in a crib, right? The crib is there for the newborn's safety, right? So it doesn't fall out and hurt itself, and that nothing can get in and hurt it, right? And so I think that we're being protected and looked after. That's part of the reason why with the moon landing, perhaps we haven't even been there yet, because I don't know if we can go there yet, guys. There's this deadly ring of radiation around the planet, and the astronaut spacesuits allegedly protect them from this radiation, but maybe we're not meant to explore that yet, guys. I think that we're in the nursery right now, and I think that we're in the crib, and we have galactic and divine nannies watching over us. And I think that there are watchers looking out for us and angelic beings watching out for us, and that we're protected. And yes, there is a chance that there are beings that don't have our best interest in heart that are currently, hijacking this reality or this realm. But I think that all is well. I think that all is well. I think that we are, like I said, fractals of divine light, this angelic or semi divine creature. And I think that we don't know our true power, or perhaps we've forgotten our true power. And I think that's part of these cycles that we go through on this planet. I think that if you look at like the yuga cycles in the Hindu cosmology, where um, over time we just sort of lose our godly spark, and it just kind of gets dimmed and dimmed and dimmed until we end up in the lowest, darkest, densest cycle, the yuga cycle, that everybody pretty much agrees that we're currently in, and that we're making our way back up to the golden cycle, where we remember who we are. We remember that we have this divinity within us, that we remember that there's nothing to be afraid of. We remember that we have power and dominion over everything, because spirit and all that is, and divinity is coursing through us in a very literal and metaphorical way. So I just try to remember that and not be too afraid of any of this wacky stuff that I think about. That, like, oh, battle of good and evil. I got to make sure that I'm on the right side. I got to make sure that my heart is like. That's all just, I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. And I just try to let that all go and just try to experience this place, right? To just see it for what it is. That's part of the illusion. And to take this as just a training place. And that when I'm finally ready to leave the nest, when I'm finally ready to advance my consciousness, then it will advance. And to just know that this is it's all a learning process, right? It's all a growth process. It doesn't have to be, it's all or nothing. This is it. I'm freaking out over here. Like, guys, I've definitely been there. But I'm just learning to have less and less days like that and not take any of this too seriously. So, can't wait to see you on the other side. That's for sure. We'll have a real good conversation about this wacky realm that we found ourselves in. But I'm trying to enjoy myself, right? It could be so much worse. It could be so much worse. I have so many things to be thankful for in my life, and I just try to focus on those things and be grateful and thankful for all the goodness and greatness and peace and joy that I have in my life, and not to focus on the big scary things or the things that angered me, etc. So, anywho, guys, good conversation. Normally I take notes on just like a note card, and I just sort of put bullet points on it, and just kind of where I feel like spirit wants me to go, and I just sort of use them as bullet points to keep me on the rails. Um, but for today's, I took like 4 pages of notes, like 4 full notebook pages of notes about aliens, reverse engineering, and just I took a lot of notes, guys. And so I've been kind of putting this one off because it seemed kind of big and overwhelming. It's a big topic, and I really dove hard into it. And I'm sure it'll spill into future episodes as I sort of unpack all the things that I've been processing over the last month regarding interdimensionals and reality itself and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to fully, truly, 100% believe that there are aliens until I see one for myself, to be honest with you. So I will definitely let you know when and if that happens. But I'm ever a skeptic, right? I uh, I have to step back. Like I want to believe, but I have to step back and say, like, let's just look at this thing. Let's look at this thing logically. Let's look at it emotionally. Let's just look at it from all sides. And so until I see one for myself, just like with lucid dreaming, until I actually let it happen for myself, I won't fully truly have a better understanding of it. But as for now, I think that there are definitely beings on this planet, and whether or not they're from this dimension or another dimension, we are perceiving them, we are seeing them in some way, shape, or form. And they're here, and I just want to give one a handshake. Okay. So if you guys know one, just hook me up. Okay, hook me up. I just want a little meet and greet. I just want to see it with my own little peeps. Until next time, love you guys. End transmission.